Hi guys, and welcome back to Lanwan Builds, and today I have another time-lapse for you, and it's another Georgian one. This time, instead of it being a Regency villa like York Gate, and that gets harder and harder to say every time, I have some classic, basic Georgian townhouses from the Georgian Quarter in Liverpool. Normally, I wouldn't do some random houses like this on their own, but they were one of the weekly WBC build challenges, and you know I can't resist a good old Georgian townhouse. This first house, which you've just seen me build the front of, is a very classic Georgian townhouse, and the key with this one was proportions, and getting the proportions and scale right. As you've got to get the proportions and scale right on the first build on a block, as that's what you scale the rest of the block off, and if it's all wrong for the first one, then it's going to be all wrong for the rest of the buildings. So I started these buildings off by building the facades, as the original image, which we were told to build, only had the facades, and it only had the facades of 4 buildings, so I decided to start off doing those. But later on, as you'll see, I decided to come back and build some more, as I was enjoying building it so much. This one's a key one which I'm building at the moment. It's slightly taller than the rest of the buildings on the block, so it seems to sort of offset the height of it and make it feel less continuous and a bit more eclectic. And as you can see, I've also used the Aussie window technique, which I've used in many of my other builds on this one as well. I would say onwards and upwards, but it's more onwards and downwards, as these next ones are some nice, what I believe is late Victorian, however I may be wrong on this, but they're very classical, very nicely proportioned buildings, and they're actually laid out a lot differently to the other ones, as being Victorian they're slightly more intricate, so I decided to use walls for them instead. I decided to use end rods on this one to represent the larger panes that are typically seen on Victorian buildings, and were seen on this one as well. I found out recently that they were actually sort of introduced after around the 1830s, which is quite interesting, instead of using sort of the smaller Georgian panes, which, as I said before, I used Aussie's technique for. These were the buildings that originally I was only going to do, so I wasn't going to do any of the sort of 3 extra which come on after this. I decided to go and do the roofs, which are quite simple. They're nice, low angled roofs. So I use stone for them, as they're slate in real life, but now that the server's updated to 1.17.1, I'm most likely going to go back over and replace them with deep slate, as it's such a lovely block, and I really want to use it, and I've actually used it on a newer build which will come out soon, so keep your eyes peeled for that. So after building the fronts of these buildings, I decided to go and do the backs, so I can figure out how the roofs will work slightly better. And the back of this first house has a lovely little veranda, and it has nice columns on either side, and it also has this nice little extension with a bay window on it. I almost said bow, no, it's a bay window, and I really wanted to include that in it as well. Despite this house being a Georgian one, in Liverpool, the building that it was based off actually had a Victorian extension on it, which I also wanted to include, and I tried to make the windows quite eclectic, as you can see some later Victorian windows towards the bottom of the main house, and a little Georgian one on top. The extension's two-tone, which I use sandstone for, because for some reason I really like sandstone and birch, and it creates a lovely colour combo with the bricks. Having built up the walls, it's now time to get onto the big Georgian townhouse, the very tall one from earlier, which also has an extension. It seems to be extension wonderland at the back here, but trust me, it does quieten down on that front later on. The windows on the back are nicely proportioned, and it would be a perfect classical facade on the back if it wasn't for the extension, but it was there in real life, so I thought I should do it justice and build it in the game. All in all, these first 3 buildings were very classical Georgian ones with nice Victorian extensions, and now we move on to actual Victorian buildings, which don't have Victorian extensions, or at least one of them doesn't. I may have forgotten to build a row of windows on the front of one of these buildings, which is very much my bad, because I should have noticed that when I was building them, but I was a bit quick and just copy and pasted it over, so I went back and corrected that, and then after that, it was back onto building the back of the building. That's a lot of backs in one sentence. This right one, or left one if you're looking from the front, is the one which I was talking about earlier when I said it's got a nice large extension on the back. It's got two gables on the back end, which creates quite a nice aesthetic, I've got to admit. But all in all, it's an extension, there's nothing too fancy about it, it gets the job done. After I finished off those back gardens, I decided to move on and build the rest of the street, because I had so much fun building the first half and I didn't really want it to stop, so I decided to continue on. And the next building I worked on was a lovely little Georgian one, very classic like the other ones, which I was very happy to do. And it's got this very nice proportioned front, 3x3 windows, with a door in the bottom left, and it's just very classic simple townhouses like these, which really make a city feel realistic. After I tweaked the height of this building a bit and added a cellar, because all good Georgian townhouses have a cellar, especially ones that I build, I just like to add them, they look quite nice. I moved on to the final two buildings in this street, which are lovely Victorian ones with these two big bay windows on the front, which do look gorgeous. One is stuccoed white and one is just in a classic brick, which you'll see me build in a second. I absolutely love the way the bay windows turned out on these two. I'm not sure what it is, it may be just the slight overhang of the windowsills, or maybe it's something completely different. But there's something which I really like about them, and I can't quite put my finger on it. But this last end building has an extra row of windows down the side, which compensates for the street which goes in to give servants access to the back of the house, being at a bit of an angle, so they don't lose too much floor space. As, of course, they're very wealthy people, and they should never be losing floor space for the servants. That's just insulting. Now it's on to a bit more back building with more extensions. Yes, extension wonderland. These ones are also very classic, and I feel as though I've spoken about extensions so much, so I'm going to go on and talk a bit about why I decided to do these, which was, of course, it was the weekly building challenge, which I never really choose to do, but this one really captured my eye. I'm quite a fan of Georgian buildings. It's something that I'd love to say it speaks to me, but it really doesn't. I just like the look of them. So I decided to give them a go. There's something about the eclectic nature of them, especially the back of these last two, which it's just so gorgeous, it's so Georgian, and I promise Horrible Histories I'm not stealing that from you, please don't sue me. I think this bend on this corner really captured the eclectic nature of these townhouses, as none of them are the same, they're all slightly different, so they all came with different sets of challenges, and I had to find my way around each and every one of them. But the last thing to do were all of the back gardens, which, because it's the Georgian era, and I've said before, they don't really like to have lavish gardens, I decided to just coat them with dirt and be done with it, because this project took me a bit longer than I thought it would. I enjoyed every second of it, but gardening is not one of my strong points. So, yep, I just chucked in a bit of dirt, put a few leaves around, and put a few access doors at the back, and that was it. So with the project now finished, I'm going to go and cut to a cinematic, and afterwards I will give you a rundown on what is coming up on the channel soon. So that's it guys, completely finished. And I had a lot of fun building this, and I really hope you had a lot of fun watching it. This video, after 2 minutes, was completely unscripted, so it's me coming up with everything off of the top of my head, and I much prefer doing things this way, because it means I can be a lot more genuine, and in future, I think this is the way that I'll be going with my videos, so I hope you stick around and watch them. It's been fantastic to be back, and hopefully within a week or so, I have a very spooky building coming out, which I hope you'll enjoy. If you've seen on my community post, which I've now got access to, which is incredible because I hit 1k and I'm very, very happy about that. If you've seen on my community post, I did post something about it. So I would say go over and check that out, but you don't have to. With that being said, thank you for watching and I will see you all next time. Goodbye.